My name's Stephanie Dowden. I'm a children's nurse practitioner coming to you from Whadjuk country in Perth. I'm going to share with you a little bit about our program that we run here at Nurse Prac Australia. So we're children's nurse practitioners, and early on when the practice started, we were asked by the local hospital if we would be interested in starting a weight management program in the community. And being nurse practitioners and being innovative and able to do something out of the box, we thought, why not? So we have a whole child, whole family approach, and it comes from a completely nursing model of care. Probably the main things that we focused on and has the biggest impact is really focusing on waist and waist-height ratio. The things that we found have really considerable impact for families is how life gets in the way in a weight management program, and how if you can be flexible and adaptable, you can keep families engaged and allow them to have breaks and then come back. As many other people have already said, it's very important to avoid shame and blame. We find at our first appointment, sometimes we can't do anything except get families engaged. So even though that appointment is set up to be the initial, do everything, have a big assessment, do clinical, blood pressure, all those other things, sometimes it's really about just getting engaged. For many parents, it's their own distress about what's happened to them over their life that has an impact on how they feel about coming to a clinic and talk about their child's weight. We have a very flexible model. We allow frequent and infrequent visits, pretty much let the families choose what they would like to do. Sometimes it's the child or teenager that makes those choices. If they want to take breaks, they can. It's quite common for families to go through a period of disengaging and then coming back to us and say, hey, we're in a different space now, we'd like to re-engage again, is that okay? Being in the community and being part of our own little practice, we, can set our own rules, and that's been really lovely for us to be able to offer that for families. We also work pretty hard to chase unmissed appointments, and we find for quite a few of the families that we work with, there's a lot of other stuff happening in their lives that impacts on how they're managing. So it ends up being sometimes a bit of a wraparound model, or looking at how we can support them in other ways. Next slide, please. So we decided fairly early on that we really needed to focus on something that was less shaming, but also really important for families. When we first see children, we look at their well-being. We do the radar assessment, which is a school, family, life and well-being assessment that the children do themselves and the teenagers. And we also look at their body esteem. And what we've found is that body image distress is very commonly focused on belly or stomach size. Children describe being fat shamed, their uniforms not fitting, or not even available in a bigger size. It's very common for primary school age children to get to the last year of primary school and they don't fit the uniform anymore. We've had teenagers being not allowed to play sport because they don't fit their sports uniform because it doesn't come any bigger. And then they're getting detention because they don't come in the right uniform. So knowing that fact and knowing that waist-height ratio and waist reduction has the biggest long-term health benefit, that's what we often set as our goal. 71% of children and young people that come into our program have a waist-height ratio in the severe risk range for future cardiometabolic risk. We know that your waist ideally should be half your height, and yet we're seeing children whose waist are 3/4 of their height. The really exciting thing is by focusing on waist, which is around being active, having more fibre in your diet, having less sugar in your diet, we get a large number of children and teenagers reducing their waist. And about 80% of them by visit 12 will have waist reduction. We've even had a couple of young people who are still putting on weight. BMI is still increasing, but they've had a significant waist loss. So clearly they've got rid of some of the fat around their belly and converting that to muscle because they're more active. And at the same time, their blood pressure is stabilizing, their liver function is improving, and their insulin is improving. I think moving forward, the other thing to be really mindful of is the number of young people and children we see on the autism spectrum. And you have to be very careful when you're dealing with children and teenagers in this range, because they can be quite fixed on doing things a particular way. Although we want to measure weight and height, we have to be very careful we don't fixate on that too much. So just to finish off, I really want to thank our partners and our collaborators, my colleague Carly Martin, the other paediatric nurse practitioner who I work with, Janine Spencer, the paediatrician at Fiona Stanley Hospital, and Coburn Integrated Health, and Chloe Corello, who the four of us have really worked very hard together to keep this model going and to really demonstrate that you can do really high quality waste and weight management in the community for children and young people, and you don't have to have a hospital-based model. Thank you.